present here, Bob Geppert, Ron DePonte, John Grega, Phil Measy, Glenn Sikorsky, and Joe Schofield. And Chris Shoemaker has also joined us. And on the phone, we have Teresa Phillips. So we definitely have a quorum. The next thing was to approve the October 10th, 2019 minutes, which you have. However, they really haven't been reviewed. I take responsibility for that, at least at this point. That has bounced back into my lap, so I'm going to postpone the approval of the October 10th minutes till the next meeting. Next thing on the agenda is the Lake 38 improvements. Bob and Joe and I were all, I guess, at the CDD meeting. And we took it that the sense of the committee was that we didn't think this was really our responsibility. We think that the specs were met for where the building should be put in Viadana, and that if there is correction to be made, it should probably be made, if they want to, by the condominium association or the owner. We just didn't see spending $70,000 or $80,000 for an engineering study that would then tell us that we'd have to spend another $500,000 to correct the problem. So we have told, that's what we have informed the CDD where we stand on this. I'd take any comments anybody else wants to make about it.
No, I think they concurred. I mean,
Yeah.
as regrettable as the situation is,
It is.
pushed it as far as we can.
Yeah.
And although they're on the fringes and the borders, they being the developers, on how they built it, legally, they're within,
Yep.
within the guidelines.
Yep. We can just hope we don't have any.
Now,
I guess we had a 200-year flood.
Yeah, from a practical point of view, we are getting estimates to build a wall around that one building, so that in the event of up to a 12-inch overspill into the home, they'll be protected. Up till now, we have taken the steps of having somebody on site to do a sandbag installation, but we're going to take it a little step further and figure out what our options are to put something more permanent, even if it is installed ahead of a rain event and then removed. So I'll keep you posted on it as we go forward.
Anything further on that? I neglected one thing. If we have any votes, we'd like to allow Teresa to vote. Do I have a motion to?
I will make a motion to
I'll
have
second.
Teresa vote.
John makes a motion, Bob seconds. Motion to have Teresa vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries 6-0. You can vote if we vote on anything, Teresa.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Financial report, Glenn?
Well, I want to thank Nancy Olson on the transition. I'm a semi-retired CPA, so I've seen a lot of numbers over the years, and she, at the president's meeting this morning, turned over the documents and has instructed me on the process of the emails approving the invoices. So the only thing I wish to comment is the HOA agreement. The fiscal year is September, correct, of our association. So we had a budget of 1.277 million, and we spent 1.161, so we're fiscally sound, which was nice to see. And I'll be learning as I go, and we'll be handling this part of the advisory committee going forward.
Good. Okay, any questions of Glenn?
Just a couple of real quick ones. Number one, Glenn, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Welcome.
And Teresa,
Glad to
welcome
have
to you too.
And you, as well as Teresa.
Thank you.
Apparently, from what you said, it looks like we have a little bit of a surplus from this past year. Is that the close of the books for the year? You have everything as far as you know?
As far as I know, yes,
Okay.
at the present time.
Over the next couple of months, because this is going to take a while for you to get in there, I guess, and get the numbers, we've had a long-standing discussion about what to do with the money that we have. A lot of the money is earmarked for various reserves, earmarked for ponds, et cetera. And we always have had a hard time figuring out how much money there really is and what's the flexibility, if any, in using that money. Okay, for example, it appears we have a little bit of a surplus this year. So I would like for you to kind of focus in on that, as well as the normal day-to-day stuff associated with the budget. So we can, hopefully going into the future, we can continue getting a better handle on that situation.
All right, I will take that.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
I believe that surplus probably ends up in our unassigned reserves.
Yes, and that, in the past, we've had a lot of money in there, but it really wasn't, even though it was in that account, it really wasn't unassigned.
Right.
So we've been making lots of headrow into clearly identifying what that money is there for, so that it doesn't appear to the community, for example, that we have all this money that's lying around
True.
excess. And we really don't, I don't believe, have that much money in excess. That's what I'm asking you to kind of hone in on, and get a handle on that.
Okay, I will make that part of, when I review
Yeah.
the numbers. Thank you.
Specifically, I think one of the things that we're gonna have to look at this year is, while the work on the bridges on the preserve is underway, we probably are gonna need to replace or do something about the boardwalk. And although we are now accumulating reserves to take care of that the next time around, right now, we don't have any funding in our reserves to really take care of the boardwalk. So that may be one of the things that will have to come out of our unassigned reserves, and we're talking close to $500,000, I guess, for that work. So that's one of the things, specific things we need to look at.
Okay.
Okay, anything more of Glenn?
No, that's it for the
Okay.
present time. Thank you.
Okay. Association Manager Report and Securitas. Scott, you're on.
Scott Charnock, Castle Management, Pelican Preserve Community Association. Mr. Chairman, if it's possible, I'd like to have Securitas come up and give their report, their introduction to our new team members, and that way they can be down the road and
That sounds
get items accomplished they need
Okay,
to.
let's do
Thank you.
that.
Good afternoon. Danielle Harmon with Securitas. So first this afternoon, I'd like to introduce, I know last month we mentioned we would have a new supervisor. So he's here with us today, Darius. So just so you can all put a face with a name. If anything, if you see him out in the community, feel free to, ask him any questions or what have you. So,
Darius?
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard, Darius.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again, like I say, I'm here to assist any way I can for you. So if you see me, any questions, please feel free to ask.
all right. So the next thing, I'm going to pass around our numbers. Here for the month, our traffic counts have increased quite a bit, as usual around this time of year. So our guest lane access, we've increased roughly 2,500 since September, from October to from September. And then our resident lane, we've increased about 12,000. We're looking at 58,162 this month over 44,694 last month. So numbers have increased quite a bit, and we expect that to continue to go up as we get further into season. And just another note that December 1st, we will have a second officer during the first shift at the front gate to assist in that increase.
I noticed that, looking at last year's numbers, that we really tend not to peak until we get into January and February.
We're already
So,
there.
and we're,
Yeah.
well, yeah, we're,
Over the last year.
yeah.
We're already at the
So,
Yeah, we are, and
October 18.
And
October
January is
10,000,
usually,
174,
usually
10,000.
when it really starts, but we're seeing,
Yeah.
yeah, quite an increase already, so.
All it was this or
And,
this.
and October of, actually, October of this year was slightly less than October of last year, which is a bit of a surprise,
Yeah,
but,
and last year it didn't have those other two lines, two columns filled out. But
yeah, right. But at least in the guest lane, it was a little small, okay.
Right. So are there any
Any-
questions?
Any questions?
I have a comment. I had the opportunity to hear you talk this morning, and the question was raised about the tighter security that's going to be at the gate starting in December
Yes.
to eliminate people from, with barcodes that are no longer up to date or from other communities, allowing them to come through. And the second attendant was mentioned to be a help to relieve if we get somebody stuck there.
Correct.
My question is, rather than trying to back people up, is it possible just to open the gates and have them just make a U-turn and get the heck out, rather than trying to get people moved backwards, which, when you
Right.
have, believe it or not, I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen at least 10 to 12 cars lined up bumper to bumper. You can't possibly back that many up.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So the plan, just so you know, with that second attendant is to have, you know, them kind of post in that resident lane. So any issues we have like that, and I need to confirm this with Scott and Chris, you know, make sure we're on the same page, but that attendant would be able to open the gate so that the guest can then turn around and come back through the guest lane rather than backing up the gate, trying to,
Yeah, just make
Back them
a
out and-
U-turn and get back in.
exactly. Yep, absolutely.
Certainly makes sense. Any other questions of Danielle? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Scott?
All right.
Scott, you might just reintroduce yourself so that the minute takers are,
Scott Charnock, Castle Management, Property Manager at Pelican Preserve. Good afternoon. You should have a packet in front of you. I have emailed it to you, and here's the hard copy. There are a couple of items that we're going to have you take action on. The first one is the proposal from West Coast Electrical Lighting Service for the front entry uplighting. All of our uplighting is affected by weather and age and the type of bulb that's there. Our trees have grown, so the type of bulbs, the incandescent, need to be changed out to LEDs, and some of them just have to be replaced. They're rusted out and they're laying on the ground. So a lot of the darkness that our owners have been seeing that was brought up at the Security and Safety Committee has to do with our indirect lighting of the entrance to the community. We also have a few issues out on Colonial, but this does not address the Colonial area. This is strictly for the entrance right off a tree line.
yeah, I would just comment, as Scott did, that the issue of lighting at the gate is something that has come up quite a number of times from residents and has been kind of on the agenda of the Safety and Security work group for some time, so it's something that probably needs to be done.
So I just need your approval to move ahead.
So how does that affect the budget? I mean,
Yeah.
is
Is
this
this in the
money
budget?
there?
Yes.
Or,
It is in the budget for streetlight repairs, and we have money under the monument, front monument maintenance and repairs. So there will be funding in there.
Okay.
Now, the issue will be where we're going to get the funding for the additional lighting up by the Colonial Boulevard monuments. So that's,
That will be outside the budget?
yes, that'll have to be outside the budget. But we'll talk more about that next month, once I get all the proposals.
I'll make a motion to accept West Coast Electric's price for all lighting.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
I would make it not to exceed 7,000. That way you got, things come up all the time, rather than fix with a number of 62.
John, you all right?
That's fine with that.
Sure.
Okay, for an amount?
Okay.
To repair the front gate lighting for an amount?
Thank you.
Not to exceed 7,000.
So
Any further discussion?
when's it gonna get done?
Oh, well, I'll have them out this afternoon.
Before you get home,
But I don't know what they're gonna do this afternoon, but as soon as I know the schedule, I'll email that to all of you, so you're aware of it.
That's good. And Chris, this is something that you can approve once we have passed it, is that right? Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Seeing none, it passes 7 to naught, so, Scott,
Thank
continue
you.
on.
The next item is replacement of 4 of our park benches. If any of you have noticed the condition of our park benches, they are metal, so they have started to deteriorate, and some of them are completely rusted through their brackets, and the wood is starting to break apart. So this bench is gonna fall in line with the bench that is on Veneto to the right. It's gonna be the same style as that bench that was replaced.
Will it last any longer than,
God willing, it will, because it has less metal associated with it. Basically, it's the supports and the bracket that is attached to the concrete. So we're no longer having bench legs that are thinner and can rust quicker. So that is the intent, is to have them last longer.
is there money in the budget for this one?
Yes.
There is, okay.
So we're talking about
Nine-
2,300-ish dollars altogether?
20
4? 27.
Yeah.
58.
27, 58, 33.
Okay. Any other questions of Scott? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 4 replacement benches not to exceed $3,000.
Second?
Second.
That's seconded. Bob makes the motion, John seconds. Further discussion?
This isn't a capital asset, is it?
No, I would think, well,
I don't think they fall under,
Too negligible amount?
yeah.
It's negligible amount,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it seems to me that, and I don't know what, as a matter of fact, this is a discussion we've been having at the, at the PPCA board, but as to what is capitalized and what is not. And generally, amounts this small, you would expense rather than to have them come out of the
How many
capital budget.
budgets, how many benches do we have in New Pelican, roughly? And are they of this
Wow.
more durable type, or?
They're all about the same. Life expectancy can be 5 to 10 years.
Okay, but this is a 50-year bench, right?
Well, they say that.
Well, I won't be here to check. I gotta trust you.
Yeah.
How do we select where the benches are?
Through the concrete footers that are currently installed.
You meant initially,
Or-
Joe? WCI just put them in
Yeah.
where it seemed appropriate.
Well, I'm just thinking there's no benches on any ponds in Carina.
Well, that's why I
I'm
asked,
not sure
well,
we want one,
but you don't
I'm
really
just
have an
curious.
area in Carina. You know, in all honesty, there's not many areas there, unless you get off
We got 2
Cypress Grove.
ponds on Cypress Grove. I
Yeah,
just was
Cypress
curious
Grove would be the
How
way.
they got selected, I thought they were HOA responsibility.
It was a builder put them in
Yeah.
initially, and they chose not to spend the money on any of the Cypress Grove communities. We can certainly change
Nobody can
that.
spy on my house from one anyhow.
And at least one of them was dedicated, right, to, isn't there one of the benches that?
Well, when the benches-
Has Leslie Steino's name on it?
Where the benches were placed, we arbitrarily made those fishing zones.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that they got names on them. That's another good thing. That may be true. I don't know.
I thought one of them,
One of them does. I don't recall the location.
Yeah, I
but-
think it's-
But
it's-
one of them, one of the owners did pay for the bench.
yes.
So we have that going on in another area that's owned by the Master Association.
Okay.
Oh, so the master has some also?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of these benches is the one that one of our residents pay for, I assume?
No,
No,
Oh,
No,
so it
none
doesn't
of
have a
these.
plaque
These-
on it? Oh, okay.
correct.
I wanted to
Yeah.
verify
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just was observing, I'm not quite sure which one it was, but
Okay,
I
so
think it was,
wanted to make sure it wasn't
I think it
one of
was Leslie Steinow that the bench
I have
was
a question
dedicated to.
regarding that. Is it possible for residents to donate a bench in memory of somebody and put it at their, at their expense at some location?
we have that going on now.
And that's okay?
Sure.
Okay. That's
And,
good.
and
It's
I
good
know,
to
I know there are benches in the butterfly garden.
Yes.
That are dedicated. There are
A lot of them in there.
Yeah.
A lot of them are dedicated.
Right.
Yep. Further discussion? Questions of Scott on this one? We have a motion on the floor. All
I'll
in
move,
favor?
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries 7-0, so you've got the money for that one, Scott.
All right, the next section is the bridge project. Just wanted to update you that bridge number 2, that is the bridge closest to Sienna, has been totally demolished and it is now being reconstructed. One thing that you're going to notice with the new material, and I'm not talking about the decking material, which is the composite, I'm talking about the structure, the stringers and the cross beams. In the past, they were using 2x6s and 2x4s. This build requires 3x8s. So it's definitely an improvement in the strength of the bridge. And that comes into play because of how the bridges are used, meaning golf cart traffic.
I did notice, and it kind of surprised me, that the 3x8s or the composite are not the Trekwood type of thing. It's more the treated type wood. And I guess that surprised me, and I don't know why.
No, that is marine grade, and that is what has to be used. The composite material,
It
they
just
don't
surprised me.
market
I was
that thing.
expecting to see.
Oh, okay, I
Trekwood.
understand.
And when I saw that this morning, I thought, wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
normally.
got it down in a day.
Oh, yeah. In the construction, they still use marine grade for the structure
So the
itself.
supports on the pilings.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Get better anchorage.
So-
Any other questions of Scott or discussion? Scott, you're still, what, for the whole project, you think mid-January is about what we're looking at for completion?
I'd rather be ahead of schedule. But yeah, mid-January
Mid-January.
is still the date. It really depends on weather. So if it rains, they're not gonna be out there working on those scaffoldings that they have
Yeah,
over
but
the
between
water.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, you're gonna be losing
I'm gonna lose 2 weeks
2
there.
weeks. Yep.
Yep, agreed.
But they're moving quickly.
Yes, and did you get the invoice for this? The first payment? I emailed it to you, so.
Scott, while we're in the preserve, is it your intent to look at the boardwalk for fiscal year 2020?
I've already started to look at that. I think what we need to do is twofold. I think we should plan on doing a complete building engineering plan for that boardwalk. The committee's gonna have to make several decisions with the boardwalk. Right now, the condition of the boardwalk is much better than the bridges because it does not have constant sunshine, where you get a lot of mold and mildew on the structure itself. It's not really deteriorating at the rate the bridges were. We do have wood rot going on and we are replacing the planks. The structure itself may not need to be replaced. But that's gonna be up to the engineering that we do and then the building codes. I can tell you that if We do have to replace the cross beams, as we did with the bridges. It's gonna be considerably more than $500,000. It's gonna be an expense, and that area would be closed 4.5 to 5 months. So with that in mind, what I would recommend is to continue the funding, do the engineering now, or at the end of season, when summer comes, and then put it on the calendar and begin construction on that the following May, which would be 2021. Otherwise, you're going to really push it fast, and you're looking at possibly $750,000 to replace that.
And that's assuming the pilings are good.
Yes,
Okay.
but without the engineering, we don't know. So they're gonna have to get underneath the bridge and trudge through the swamp and get all that information.
Do we have old drawings of that bridge from WCI?
No.
So we have no idea how they did the pilings.
Oh, the builders and the engineers do. But we don't actually have the drawings, but the drawings and as-built drawings are two different things, as we have found out. Trying to find as-built drawings from the county is difficult. So the best thing is just to go in there with the engineering, because they have to check the whole thing anyway to put together the engineering for the building permit.
And we probably couldn't get away with the railings that we have today
No.
in the
No,
new environment.
Yeah, well, we had, yeah, the bridges, we had to do
Yeah.
special rail.
Yeah, the railing, instead of you have the top railing, the center railing, and then the deck, that's gonna change. It's gonna be the top railing, 2 railings, and then the deck.
Yeah, the oldsters keep trying to get out.
Yeah, they
Climb through
keep
that.
trying to crawl through and, grab for things in the water.
And John, you have permission of the committee to put your boots on and go down there and take a look at the structure.
My knee will be better by then.
But
Yes.
even that,
They're
Scott,
done that.
we could, once we have the engineering study,
Yes,
we could choose to do the observation deck 1 year and entrance to the main observation deck the next. We could stage it in a couple
we
of years.
could, yes, that's a possibility,
Which we probably should.
yeah.
Are
Glenn?
we committed to, or required to keep what's there in the replacement?
Who's gonna be brave enough to suggest we get away with it?
You mean in terms of the design?
Yeah, and what's there now, is that what you have to replace it with?
I think
mean,
you-
it
Glenn, I
is-
think you'd have a very difficult time changing it in any way
I see.
because of the environmental, and this is a
Yeah.
conservation area.
Right, I
It's-
figured.
We're pretty much stuck with what we have.
Because you know how that one goes out to the right, how many people go back there, et cetera? Like,
Well, we used to have, a lot of people went back every night before the thalia took over. Because the birds would roost every evening, and it was really quite beautiful. All the photographers were there every night.
Yes.
The thalia took over, and that is a Florida native, so you gotta be very careful in how that's treated. But somehow they're currently going away.
They are.
And we are returning back to the state that we wanted to be, magically. And once that is restored, which we hope will be by next June, there'll be a lot more of enhancement for people to go out there.
Okay,
I think you'll be
good. I just-
surprised at how popular that place can become.
Yeah. In the early days, it was very popular.
Yes.
It would be nice to have at least one roundabout there where you can have two golf carts
Oh, yeah,
pass each
yeah.
other.
I think the design.
Well, they got the
design
little
will stay
flag,
the
I mean,
same.
that helps.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what's really neat? The people that put the flag down and leave it down. And there's a lot of that.
But, this would definitely fall in the category of a capital item because of the cost.
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
So,
I don't know if environmentally they'll allow you to put a bigger roundabout anywhere either.
Only if you didn't change the footprint.
if you don't change the piling, you
Don't
can do it.
change the piling,
If you
can
change
do
the
it.
piling, you're gonna have a problem.
Then we
Yeah.
can, John, then we can design a bridge support and use all our engineering skills to get.
Yeah, put a drawbridge in,
Let's,
yeah.
let's not do that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the engineering study.
Yep.
It's a good first step.
It's a good first step, so.
I'll go ahead and get a proposal on that,
Yes.
so we can consider that as we
Yes.
go into late spring.
Let's do that,
Now,
Scott.
we still have a budget item of about $35,000 just to treat it every year or clean it or pressure wash it. we had a budget item to do that.
Not at that level.
No, I don't think it.
No,
No,
not at
no,
this
no.
level, but I'm saying the
No.
boardwalk.
Oh, the
There's a
boardwalk?
budget item
Well,
for
we
just
put-
routine maintenance.
Let's
Well, we
see.
put $35,000 extra into the reserve
Right,
to start,
maybe that's what you're thinking.
is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking of?
Well, we've
Is that
done this for about 4 or 5 years now, maybe even longer, because we had it pressure washed a couple times
Yeah.
since I've been here.
But
We only have 12,000 in boardwalk repairs next year.
12,000.
Okay, was it 12, and then every 2 years, we had the 25, and then we did it. or
Yeah,
whatever,
that
whatever
could
it
be,
was.
but the 35 you're thinking of may be the amount that we added to our reserve calculation. We bucked it up from 330 to 365
Okay,
in order to start, but that's really for the next time around.
Right.
Right
well,
now-
hopefully, once the Trek is installed, then it'll just be mold removal.
Yeah, right now, I think we're faced with probably having to use the reserves that are not assigned, the unassigned.
The
reserves.
capital reserves.
Well,
I don't think,
we've got our
I'd be shocked
capital
at this.
reserve fund, but then we have, we have a bunch of unassigned reserves, and I think we
Okay.
kind of, we're thinking that it would come out of that.
Well, whatever that amount is, I doubt
Whatever
it'll be
that-
enough to pay the whole bill. I don't think there's that much money there.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there
That's
is.
really
I think,
truly
well,
unassigned.
To
But-
your point, that's one of the things Glenn's gonna need to look at, I think.
In
Well, in capital project reserves, there's 2.2,
Right.
and unassigned is 2.05.
Yeah.
But I
So-
mean, that's.
So it's 4 million?
2.05.
That's 4
4
million.
million?
I don't know if that includes some of your
Bob's
money.
gonna
in
grab
there.
some.
That's,
No, my money's not in there at all.
Not in there anymore?
No,
Okay. Well,
oh, you mean in the unassigned?
Yeah.
If it's not unassigned reserves, if it's unassigned money, yeah, then that's ours.
yeah, but it's about $1 million of it is yours.
No, I'm down to less than 400,000.
Okay.
All right, so
Well,
there is
So
a
there's,
lot.
so there's still a lot
Still a
there.
lot.
and that's where, Glenn, you come in to figure that out over the next
Yeah.
couple of months.
Yeah. Trying to, and
But-
I think
Not next week, but-
Nancy's done some work on that, Glenn.
Yeah.
I'll tell, yeah,
Yeah, but
But
we
the-
need to find out, because some of the reserves are assigned. I mean,
Correct.
obviously, one of them is a
Right.
capital reserve.
Right.
And
For
some of
roads.
those are the ponds reserves, and we had a couple of other things we put in there, but some of it's unassigned.
But from the capital assets project,
Yeah.
was the boardwalk one of our capital assets, John? Do you remember? Like we're gonna
Well, it
replace the
should be,
guardhouse?
Yes.
Well, my question, is it on that list or not?
But yes, we added it to the list.
So it is on the list, okay.
We added it to the list. That's the reason we put in the extra $35,000.
Gotcha.
In there
Yeah.
for the future, 20 years from
All
now,
right.
30 years from now.
Right.
So whenever we wanna do it, we got the money there,
We will have the money.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
see, as a bean counter, I'd like to get rid of those boardwalks. I'm just kidding.
You just
You're
got
good, you're good.
a note put out on your forehead.
He's gonna open a ferry service.
He really doesn't wanna be here very long. Get rid of the golf cart lanes too, Glenn.
Any other questions of Scott on this?
Just one last item. I left you a few items that we are going to be addressing in 2020, including the boardwalk engineering. We did talk last year about the trellis replacement on the residential sidewalks as you approach the gate, and then the front monument, along with the painting of the gatehouse, the entry structures, and the bridges, except for Trentino's Bridge, that, because of the land and the structure, we were able to paint that internally. Matter of fact, that's almost done,
Yes, in fact, it was being worked on today.
yes.
Yeah.
The gatehouse painting, why do I only paint my house every 10 years? But this seems to me at least the second, maybe the third time we painted the gatehouse.
Actually, painting it, I can't answer how you paint your house. Sometimes our preparation is a little greater than what you do on a commercial building, but normally commercial buildings are every 5 to 7 years. And if you go up there, the paint is chalky, and you can see where all the touch-up painting's been done. It doesn't look good. Now, I can always ask them to put spray a sealant on before the final base coat. I can
part of the
ask them to do
I
that.
don't know what Breno does, but I mean,
Yeah.
and we just had our yearly meeting, and we're probably gonna paint again next year. which will be the 8th year
Yeah.
since we did it. But our houses look great, and I'm just wondering why that guardhouse,
The difference
Yeah.
is the exhaust fumes from the cars going through are actually causing some of the, I don't wanna call it deterioration, but that will
okay,
make you
that,
paint
that,
it a
that's,
lot more.
all right, I can accept that.
The
And it's very
the
typical.
environment has a huge impact on your paint. But one of the things that I learned was if you get the paint company representative, not a contractor, but the paint companies send a representative out, they will evaluate your paint. And there's two paint companies that have been working in Pelican Preserve, Scott Paint and Sherwin-Williams Paint. The original painting was all done by Scott Paint. And they have at least a 10-year warranty paint, but it's the coating you put on underneath and then put the applied color on it. We have them come out to our houses, and these people will say, this house is chalky, this one's perfect, and they're almost next to each other. And we have been painting with their recommendations. But it's interesting that they'll tell you, this house doesn't need paint, and their job is to sell paint. So I don't know, I think, I deal with the paint companies, not a contractor.
Well, but Monticello has Scott,
Yeah.
as provided by
Yeah,
WCI
that's now
originally,
Florida
and it's been
Paint Providers.
incredibly robust paint for our
There
community.
is a difference in the type of paint that you're gonna use.
Well,
too.
when I had my house painted after 3 years, because of Lennar's wonderful paint job, we used Scott rather than Sherwin-Williams. We were thrilled with them, and the representative was marvelous.
What I have found out is when you're working with a developer, developers are notoriously,
Frugal.
yes, I like that word. They're gonna spray a structure. What you have to do is you have to spray the sealant, and then you follow it with a spray, and then you follow it again with a roller. So you almost have 3 coats of paint, and that's going to hold up for longer than 5 or 6 years.
Well,
But
the WCI Scott paint that was originally installed on the homes in Monticello has been nothing less than outstanding.
yes,
People
That-
that put in water
yeah.
lines, 5, 6 years in,
Yeah.
onto a wall that was totally exposed to the sun, got their old can of paint out, painted it, and it was a perfect match. I couldn't believe it.
yeah.
And that's why I asked, the gatehouse. I know we painted it at least once, maybe twice, since I've been here in 14 years. It doesn't ring true why we need that, but okay.
Any more-
Exhaust is part of it.
Any more questions of Scott?
That's all I have.
Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, the trellis replacement. Have we ever replaced that? We talked one time about putting in, not treated wood. We were gonna do something, instead of having it wood, it was gonna be some kind of composite. Did that die?
I don't know. That was really before my
That was
time.
Sarah, when Sarah Mabry.
But what I can tell you is what's been replaced, what was it, in 2016, they redid the structure and they did not use cedar. They used a pressure-treated wood. And that's why when you drive in on Colonial, they look lighter than the ones that are in the front of the tree line entry, because those have been painted and those were cedar. But if you look at them, like most cedar applications, they do rot, and their termites love them.
Should we get something more robust, spend a couple extra bucks, we get 20 more years out of it? A product to put up there?
I'll check with the company I have coming out.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
just, they look like crap, and we ought to have something that looks good.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
But that's gonna be one of the projects I'm working on for 2020, so I'll have that to you this year.
Good.
or
Thanks,
next year.
Scott.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are on to an issue that I asked Chris if he would come in and kind of review it for the board and tell us what the story is.
Afternoon, Chris Shoemaker with Gateway. And middle of October, I was approached by David Caldwell. And we had a meeting here with Mr. Caldwell, with the representatives from Passarella and Associates, and also with the engineer, RWA. And what they wanted to talk about was encroachments into preserve and easement areas. And what sparked this was the turnover of the WCI Lennar assets to Pelican, so they're getting their ducks in a row. and getting things in order. And what I sent over, and I have this large-scale map and then copies for you, is in a number of these areas, they have to go in and modify the water management district's permits that were issued. Now, in most cases, what these are encroachments into a preserve by a golf cart path. And most of them are pretty minor. The golf cart path might be 8 or 10 feet into the preserve area. It's not a significant issue because the water management district considers a golf cart path a recreational use. But it does require a permit modification. Down on this CA8, there's additional property that would be included into the preserve area. And I have a set of these sheets for you folks to look at, and I can send them to you digitally. In most cases, they say it's pretty benign what's going on with the golf cart paths, because they're literally, the path is just on the edge of the preserve, and maybe even the width of the path itself, at 6 or 8 feet, is inside the preserve. So not a big issue. However, where you have the golf course building, behind it, there's a couple irrigation water storage tanks. Those are in the preserve. And that has been altered significantly. So in that case, the Water Management District says, move your tanks out, restore the property, and monitor it for 5 years.
So just for clarification, Chris, we're talking about, you may not know the answer to this, but us golfers may. Are we talking about between Heron
The
1 and 2?
T-box for 18.
Yeah, that's
or
not
9.
Oh, the tee box from Ibis 18?
It's actually that pump house, correct?
Right.
It's the
It's
pump house.
pump
Pump house.
Now,
Oh, along Cypress Grove.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And is it
that
our,
whole thing in there?
our property, or is it the golf course's property?
Well, I guess gonna be your property, or it's property that goes to Pelican Preserve.
Okay, this is,
WCI ceded that property to us at the turnover. They made a big point to say, we are giving you the pump house.
right,
Lucky
okay.
us.
So, but
Yeah.
they have to have their ducks in a row, and it's not right according to the permit. So what they're doing is working on a modification of the permit to submit it. And in most cases, the Water Management District would say, okay, fine, we're gonna add your golf cart path, and we'll change the preserved and the survey to show that golf cart path within there. But when you get into, again, those golf course tanks, they need to be moved. Area needs to be restored, and it needs to be monitored 5 years. Once or twice a year, you go out there to make sure the plantings are successful. If they aren't, you have to replant.
So is Lennar going to do that work?
Yes.
Lennar is gonna do the work.
Yes, they said they're going to do that work.
Where are these tanks located? You mentioned tanks?
Right behind
The pump house.
the pump house.
Okay. Is there a reason that the pump house and all the associated facilities with that is not golf course?
If I might?
Yeah.
If I may? That is still owned by Lennar.
Yeah.
We're in a shared use agreement
For
with the
pump
golf course for the actual pump house.
Right.
Lennar owns the structure. The only thing that the HOA currently owns are the 4 irrigation pumps within the building. But it's a shared expense with the golf operation for the building. But those 2 tanks behind the building are their fertigation tanks for fertilization of the golf course.
So they're exclusively golf course, and we
Yes.
really don't want to have anything to do with that.
No, we don't.
But
at all.
But
this turnover implies those tanks come to us.
Not
As opposed to the golf course.
Not as what I've seen.
Well,
Well,
the
Chris?
property, the preserve property is a
Yeah.
different story, and basically the deed of the conservation easement isn't deeded to you, it's deeded to the Water Management District. They're holding that easement. And what they're saying is, you deeded us an easement, but there's tanks and properties in that, and it's a conservation easement, so you can't do that in a conservation easement that you've deeded to us.
And so where are they gonna move the tanks to?
I don't know where they're gonna move the tanks, but they aren't gonna leave them in the preserve.
But the physical building, is that also in a
No,
preserve?
no, only the 2 tanks in the
Only
back.
Okay,
Only the tanks.
okay.
And that's the only significant one, and then there was one of the preserve areas too, where they actually left a section of it out that should be in the preserve, and that was that one little area I showed you where they're gonna add that to the conservation easement.
You remember which one that was? It's not a biggie if you don't know, just.
CA 8?
That's the same area.
It's the same area.
That's the same area.
Is that preserved?
Oh,
What
this
this
is
is.
golf course?
Yeah, this, well,
No, the golf course is here, the
this
reserve
is
is
the tee
next to it.
box for number 9 Ibis. That's the tee box. So all those trees.
To the right of the
Right.
To the right.
9 Ibis?
There's also a little observation area where people can go in and sit at like a little park type thing here. for St.
Oh, yeah,
Louis.
there's a little park
Yeah,
just down Cypress Grove Boulevard.
Yeah, it's down,
That's
it's down.
this.
And part of that, when I say passive recreation and the golf cart path isn't a big deal, because under that conservation easement language, they mention passive recreation facilities. The grantor reserves the rights as owner, including the right to engage in uses of the property that are not prohibited. So the Water Management District doesn't consider like a golf cart path a prohibited use, they consider it a recreational use. So if you had a few benches or something like that in the area, it's not a problem.
Chris, are you saying the pump house is not the community's, it's still owned by Lennar?
That's good.
I have no idea on
Because
pump house
I
proper.
would swear on a Bible that I heard David Caldwell at that meeting state that they had deeded over the pump house to the Master Association.
That,
I would swear to that.
well, that part, I do not know, and really this is strictly the grant of conservation easement with the Water Management District where they're trying to straighten that out, so there's no issues.
So we really don't have an issue in this.
Well, no, and the only issue I was going to bring up is what we may do, because at that time, you have Lennar contractors moving into that area to remove those tanks, replanting, and then a requirement to monitor that.
Okay.
If they walk away from it, if the master's holding the property or the district owns the preserve properties, you're left holding the bag. So we're suggesting back to Lennar to execute a license agreement with all these terms and conditions that are in the permit spelled out, and who's gonna take care of them, and do that. It would be no different than if they go in now to reconstruct a sidewalk, they need to move. Well, now they're in the district's right of way, so they need to get a license agreement to work in our right of
Okay,
way.
would it be reasonable to get a bond to cover the 5-year period so
Well,
that they do
possibly,
walk away?
the license agreement would hold them and their fiduciary responsibility through the permit to execute all those terms.
$200,000 or something like that that you can
And-
tap into if they walk away.
Right, and that's really why in the license agreement, you're formalizing that, because if they don't do it and they're not in compliance with the permit, they're gonna come to the property owner or the district for relief, so we wanna memorialize this in a license agreement, which is like a contract, which would bind them to be legally responsible.
Okay.
So
And we are responsible for the conservation areas as far as being responsible to uphold the yearly maintenance. That responsibility is ours, even though the deed, I think you said, is that it's deeded to the Water Management District. We are still responsible for maintaining them.
The district's, Water Management District's holding an easement over your property or the district's property as a preserve.
And on a normal year in, year out basis, we are financially responsible to make sure we maintain them.
Correct, by the permit conditions, so we want to use that license agreement as a vehicle just to ensure they do the same thing, so it doesn't end up in our lap
Okay.
if they default on it. So I'll be bringing this to the board next week,
Okay.
and Tony, and that's our position with WCI, just let's issue a license agreement, formalize the terms, what you're doing, and we can move forward.
Okay.
So-
Bob, I keep casting back to this. Isn't there one of the conservation areas that is not ours?
We have all of the conservation areas.
Yeah.
There are other areas that you would appear to be conservation,
Conservation.
but it's not designated as conservation.
Okay.
We have two of those, I think, don't we, Scott? One at Camarel and those are handled by the HOA to maintain them, but
Yeah.
not from the perspective of a conservation area, just good practices.
Okay.
And now we've included, I guess, the Palazzo area in that. So maybe we're up to 3 now. Zones,
I'm sorry, that includes the Palazzo, but the Palazzo area is cut into 2 pieces.
okay, so we have a couple zones that don't quite shoehorn into the description conservation area. But if you ride by on the street, it looks the same. You wouldn't know that.
And I'll say be taking that to the board next week, and then I had a couple just very brief sidebar issues. One, I did a field tour with our insurance carrier, and just went around all the different facilities. The one thing that came up with the ponds, and they made notice of the no trespassing, resident fishing only signs that are over here, and their comment was you should just have it no trespassing. And
So they have those kind of signs in Gateway?
Yeah.
Because we don't have that.
right, resident fishing only. And said, why is that? And said, well, if you say resident fishing only and the resident's over there fishing and the gator comes and snatches them, or they fall in the pond and drown, you're going to be liable for that because you basically encourage fishing. And on one side of it, people like to fish. You see them do it. It's a recreational activity. But the ponds in Gateway and in Pelican that are permitted basically say these aren't recreational, aesthetic, or fishing ponds. They're stormwater ponds. So and I said, oh, in Pelican, they have a fishing club. She's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, we do.
Well, and I'm going to go to the board with it and say, well, my proposal would be to limit liability, which limits liability to the owners in case there is a lawsuit over something happening, putting no trespassing signs. And that way, if someone wants to violate that and go fish, they're assuming a portion of that liability. But by us having resident-only fishing, we're encouraging it and saying they can fish there.
And
again,
we are absolutely doing that.
Absolutely,
So,
So maybe we need to get an insurance policy, but whatever.
well, it's just,
Now, you'd have to do more than just take the signs down. You'd have to publicly go out and tell everybody, you're not allowed to fish anymore, period.
well, it's probably as popular as
Fish at
the
your own
golf
risk.
cart issue. But I just brought it up because when she said that to me,
Legitimate
I
to
was
bring
like,
up? Yeah.
well, that's interesting, you're right, and it's no different than on your lift stations, put a no trespassing sign. Our lift station? Well, yeah, if somebody climbs over it and gets hurt, they just climbed over a fence. They weren't violating any law, so to speak. You didn't have it posted as dangerous. You know, it's just those things that carriers bring up that, and again, my job's to protect property values, and that's protecting
And they're our
residents.
carrier?
And
They're our carrier,
Yeah.
the CDD?
Yeah.
Did you see what a rider would cost to protect from gators
Well,
or snakes?
she's bringing the report with the photographs and the full report, which I'm gonna bring to the board next week, and then just discuss the ramifications of that and things we can and can't do.
Because you can purchase a rider for anything.
Sure.
It may be that the residents of Pelican are willing to pay a modest price for the right to fish.
Fish club.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And the last thing I'll bring up too, and I'll hand these out in case you have children or grandchildren on the holidays, and I sent this, I think Mr. Geffrey got a copy.
Yeah, this was discriminatory. There's nothing for the old farts.
Well, I'd have to say, you're correct on that. It's a children-oriented activity. And last year, we had over 1,000 people there, and bounce houses and raffles, and the bank has piggy banks for the kids to color, and they do a giveaway every 30 minutes. We do a collection for a foster kids charity. They have people twisting balloon animals and pictures of
Old
Santa.
people might like that, Chris.
And at the end of the night, they have a fireworks display. So it's from 6 to 9. And a lot of the people last year when they came, and like I said, a lot of children's activities, they said, this is the best event I've ever been to at Gateway. And they said, as a matter of fact, it's the best holiday event I've ever been to because there's so many things going on for the kids. And we also invite the youth groups that sing and dance and do recital type things to kick it up a notch. We actually brought in a sound stage and a stage and a light system, so when they're there performing for their parents and we set up the chairs, it really is like a theater setting, so.
We had some folks from Pelican go over last year. I heard some really wonderful things about it.
So did I.
Like I said, if you have kids, you have grandchildren you want to bring over, and
Yeah, I had
They
people
have-
call me and said, Gateway, does that mean we're invited? I said, yes.
yeah, and we have food trucks over there. But we also, they give away hot chocolate and pretzels and popcorn and candy canes and things, and there's.
Give
photo
away
ops
beer,
of
you'll get
Santa.
more.
Well, I tried to get the brewery involved, but the board shot me down on that one, so I don't know what to say, but I did see a few red Solo cups.
Are
in
you
the
Santa?
audience. No, sir. But like I said, it is a nice event, and people have company in town, or, grandchildren are there, kids that want to bring their kids over to do something for a few hours. It really is a nice event. And on the safe side, I always have 4 Lee County Sheriff's deputies there, even though we've never had any trouble, and have an EMT and a paramedic right on site. We did have a little girl that was about 7 last year doing cartwheels and broke her leg. They heal fast. I mean, the parents and the onlookers were much more concerned than the little girl was about her leg, but it's a very well-controlled event, and it really is pretty impressive, and all the number of activities there. It's great for the kids.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you for.
they can also get hurt in the bounce houses.
Yeah.
I have personal experience on that.
No,
Well,
Go ahead, Teresa.
I was happy to know that there was someone on site if we were bouncing in the bounce house and hurt ourselves.
Yeah.
Well,
Bob is a professional bounce house. so-
That's my second career.
We just need a bouncer.
And I have an association with a pediatric neurologist, and he told me one time, if you know anybody that has a trampoline, tell them to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And he said the amount of injuries we have to children with trampolines, I said the kids, he goes, well, a lot of times 2 of them get on and the knee gets one in the head or their neck. He goes, it's not pretty.
When I was a kid, I actually played dodgeball.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Can't do that now with my grandkids.
When you were a kid?
Yeah, you had balls back then.
Yeah, and I've put sprinklers and dish soap on them, but jump
And
around.
if you weren't any good, you didn't get to play Little League. The coach didn't select you.
Can I drop back once on this fishing thing?
Yeah.
Am I correct? Our Pelican Preserve was not always a fishing community, but didn't it state in our bylaws that we were allowed to fish on a pond in our backyard if we had a house on a pond? I think that's in
There
our
are
statute. Oh, I don't know about that.
2 specific items within our covenants referencing fishing. One absolutely forbids it any way, shape, or form, anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a little further on where it says, in your own backyard, you can.
Yeah, that's what
So
I
you're right.
remember, and that's what they told me when I bought it. I
But
could fish
when
in
they
my
established a fishing club in Pelican Preserve, PPAC, and I represented PPAC at meetings with Joe Smith, and we came to an arrangement where he designated certain areas that a fishing club wanted to fish and said it was allowed.
Yeah. I'm on the board for the fishing club now. and
Okay.
I was just concerned about my own backyard.
In the backyard, we would look at as an exemption from it. We're really looking at like on Griffin and around the swimming pool where people come up into these
Sure.
common access areas. And we've actually had complaints from residents because the people who are fishing there will come behind their houses to fish.
Yeah.
And the district's policy is no, that's private property.
And that's our policy
Yeah.
too.
That's our policy.
District
and
might
that's
have
a-
an easement there, but that's our easement. That's not
That's
your
right.
easement to
That is-
walk around
that's
the
correct.
pond.
But we have both. We have both.
I will say this, the fishing club members that I'm aware of are trying hard to get other people to understand what the rules are. We have an awful lot of people that fish that aren't part of the fishing club. And when you talk to them, they say, what do you mean I can't do that? I just go anywhere.
Yeah, we try to communicate through Scott. They'll put it in their blurbs and say it. Because we also, as a service, remove the plant growth behind the homes that the fishing club gives us a list of,
Yeah.
of their legitimate members, and we take care of littorals behind those homes. So there's a number of parts that we do there.
Maybe I need to do that in Hampton Park.
Chris, just while you're here, one more thing. Would you comment again, you kind of gave me a sidebar at the last CDD meeting about recoveries from Hurricane Irma from FEMA?
I got your email on that, and I'm
Yeah.
working it and pulling it up. It's just
Okay.
been so many months
Okay.
back, and typically what happened there is all the recovery that was on the CDD roads, we got that money back, and we got $10,000, a little more in mitigation for the aerators.
The remedial, yes.
Right, they bought it back, and.
They bought a surge suppressors and couple
Right.
of other things.
And Mike Kraft also told me that he made sure that that money that came back went to PPAC. Where it was really lagging and missing is there were several HOAs that went in and did work in certain areas a day or two after the hurricane to clear it and had the debris cleared. And if it wasn't stacked in the right of way on the road, then FEMA's like, no, we're not paying that. So those claims that happened immediately after the hurricane and were on HOA property were denied.
Yeah, Pelican moved pretty quickly in some areas
You almost had
Oh,
to.
absolutely.
prior
Because the
to
roads are blocked.
the ground
Yes,
rules.
right.
That's really what it boils
And,
down to.
But we, as a result, we lost.
Well, we lost a few
recovery.
bucks, but now we have a pro forma for the future.
Right.
And one thing I wasn't even sure of, we got another request that we sell the impact fee fire credits through the city of Fort Myers. And there's about $277,000 sitting in that balance. And we pay the broker
Broker,
to
right,
sell them.
right, and that comes
the-
up periodically.
Well, and there's one coming up to the board next
Is
week,
there?
and it's basically, the end result is 77,000. The check will be about 58,000. And we're also gonna send a letter because those fees will sunset in about a year and a half, and if you don't use them, you lose them. So we're gonna put in a request for an additional 3 to 5 years. But you may know more about it than I, but I think that money goes back to Pelican.
I think so too.
Yeah, because it's through the
Yeah,
city
because
and
we
through the
certainly have gotten that money before.
Right, so, in the next couple of weeks, you'll get another $58,000, so it's, like I said, going to the board.
Yep.
Like the way you think.
And Mr. Geppert, if you want, we'll be glad to put your P-PAC on the banner if you'd like.
I
to
won't be here,
donate to
otherwise I
our,
would, yeah. No, I just said it was Gateway residents only rather than CDD Gateway, whatever.
Well,
Gateway Community Development District residents.
yeah, and in previous years, they used to put banners up on Gateway Boulevard, and they had, food this free. And there are a lot of people from Gateway that showed up, so I don't do the banners anymore. We just send out.
Put one up in
our
Pelican?
well, it goes out in the utility bills and to the HOAs. And since there's a lot of folks in Pelican that aren't on our utility system, that's why I'm publicizing it with you
Good.
folks.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, anything else for Chris? Okay, we'll move on. Ponds Work Group report. Mr. Geppert.
Okay, the downspout, the never-ending downspout initiative. We're finishing up the work in Carina. He's not working this week, but he did work last week, and he's gonna be working next week. Everything has been authorized, although they're not all paid. And then we will start move to Matarita. We have surveyed Matarita, and unfortunately, I didn't bring the data with me, but I wanted to get word, and I tried to get you this morning, Phil, but I missed you, and I apologize. We want the Matarita specific residents to know that if they don't have downspouts, they need to put them in if they want to be included in this initiative. 3 or 4 of the addresses, of the street addresses over there, is 100% compliant. But there's about 26 homes that do not currently have downspouts that are on ponds, 24, 26. And we want to get and make sure we get in contact with those residents, that they would go and spend their own money to put in the downspouts so that we can then connect them and put them on.
So you're gonna contact
We will
them
contacting them and those HOA
specifically.
presidents.
Okay.
In all the other communities, we've gotten phenomenal response to this. Only one home in Solaro didn't do it, only one home out of all those homes there.
Do you have any approved vendors to give them?
No, we
names,
don't,
or you
no,
just
we're not in
go
the
off
down,
the
we're not
road?
in the downspout.
Well,
No, I
no,
don't.
no, no,
It's a good
not that you
question.
would,
It's a
but
good question. And no, we,
People have done work.
no, my brother-in-law does other things, but, but anyway, no, I don't have anybody. I'm sure there's some people do, but we don't know. I got some road comments out of, this isn't ponds, this is more broad. But in the Monticello HOA meeting this year, once again, they like to talk about the roads rippling in the cul-de-sacs, either through big moving vans, big trucks, the garbage trucks or whatever. The road ripples to the extent that you can physically see it, and when you ride over it, it's a little rough. It does not demonstrate degradation to the point where our engineering firm, Tetra Tech, would authorize repair or replacement. So what came out of this meetings is that on those streets that have cul-de-sacs, which is 90% of our residences, they would like to have a sign that says, large trucks must back up out of cul-de-sac. You can't use the cul-de-sac.
interestingly enough, that very issue came up this morning in the President's Council.
Good.
But it was somewhat different. What they were concerned about was particularly the large moving vans and the fact that when they can't turn
Right.
in that small radius. And so they either end up going up on the cul-de-sac or on people's lawns.
Yep.
And the suggestion was made that at the gate, we hand those guys a note that says, back in or back out. Whether we will be able to do that or not, Chris,
I think if you do that, that van that's moving somebody into their house is gonna turn around and say, I'm not delivering this furniture. I mean, and that's gonna hurt the new person coming in. What are you gonna do? I mean, that's a tough question.
I don't have the answer. I was just asked to bring it up.
yeah.
I'm
That is
glad it's already
a very
up.
difficult problem.
Okay, moving back to ponds. I don't know how to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
but it was something that came up. Pond signs. Okay, at the present time, we have a variety of signs in the community for ponds and for conservations. So I'm just gonna show you a few of the types that we have. There's one. This is another one. This is another one. This is another one. That's another one. This is another one. This is another one. And another one, fire danger. We have all manner of, and quality of signs. So from the ponds perspective, we are going to standardize our ponds signs to look like these two things. There will be metal sign, we already have these out there now. All of our ponds are numbered, and we also have some fishing signs. But we're gonna go get rid of all the ugly white signs that have various degrees of mold and, just general degradation, and change them to something like this. So we've got the money allocated, we've got a bid in, so I'm gonna ask us to approve an authorization not to exceed $9,000. Shouldn't be more than 4,000, but, to buy the signs and the posts. And, Scott's guy's gonna put them all in, whatever his name is, Wesley. Wesley's gonna install them. Maybe Wesley doesn't know that yet.
He doesn't, because I just found out.
See, we do all these things in committee, and then eventually, but anyway, I told him I'd bring it up here in the meeting. If there's no objections, we're gonna move forward with that.
That include the alligator sign?
Nope,
Okay.
we are not
Put that one up
authorized,
there.
well, that's coming down. We're not doing anything relative to snakes and alligators.
So that sign's gonna come down?
Yes. And we don't know who put it up. Terry didn't put it up, Scott didn't put it up, and we didn't put it up. So we don't know who's putting them up. But you can't do that, according to Tony, the CDD lawyer, because once you do that, then if somebody gets bit by an alligator, it's your fault. But if you never say anything, then you're not liable.
I love,
Sure
all
you're
of our
So anyway,
Is money in you have money in
I
your
have money in
budget?
the budget for that. It's within the fishing budget, so this will cover it. So I guess at the end of this, I'm gonna make the motion that we standardize our signage at a cost not to exceed $10,000.
Okay,
So you're making a motion?
he's making a motion.
Yeah, I just made.
I'll second that.
Any further questions, discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, next is aeration.
Yep.
Pond 37, which is the pond behind Solaro and Ibis 9, was damaged by the lightning strike a couple of months ago. And we are having difficulty securing replacement cabinetry and stuff. But we are aware that it still needs to be done, and we're moving as fast as we can to get that fixed. We still have aeration problems with all of the ponds in Pareto and Pistoia. And the problem is that Lennar hired a Jaboni contractor to put it in. He's the guy that plugged everything in the
That's a
people's homes.
technical term, by the way.
That's a technical term. So he plugged into residents' homes. He didn't put it in the ground and cables and conduit like he's supposed to. And they are having a difficult time getting all that repaired. But every week when I talk to them, it's gonna be fixed that week. Now, I'm going into about 6 weeks of that answer.
It's like the downspouts in Prado.
Oh, yeah, that's not done yet. But now we're moving ahead to go into the bond fund on that, but I'll get to that in a minute. Pond 39, which is the pond behind Palazzo, and this is the pond in which the airline that feeds our diffuser plates was damaged by the construction of the last two Palazzo buildings. Again, our friends at Lennar are aware of it. We've told them that they're gonna have to fix it, and that's where we're at. He's still investigating, but I have talked to Tony and to Chris, so that if they keep delaying, as I fully expect that they will, like they delay everything, that we tap into the bond fund to get that repaired as well. It's about an $8,000 repair. It's not a cheap repair. From a budgetary point of view, and Glenn, this will be for you, the ponds budget is going into the 2019-2020 fiscal year with about $370,000 of unallocated money. Last year, we overspent by about $300,000. So hopefully, we'll exhaust this $360,000 this fiscal year and get Matarita completed for downspouts. That's the objective. So I'll keep you posted every month as we go through that. But we're moving, we're making good progress on the downspouts, I'm happy to say.
And Matarita is the last community that.
Matarita's the last community.
Because the others are, the other newer ones are going to be done by.
Lennar. Pistoia, well, Pistoia is done. Lennar did a good job on Pistoia. I'll give them credit for that. But they're probably about 25-30% wrong in Prato. And we've been telling them for over 2 years and they haven't made the first move to fix it. So that's another thing that Tony is going forward with bond fund. Is there a bond fund? How do we tap into it? That was the question at the last board of directors meeting. Because we're tired of just sending them letters and they say they're gonna do it and never do it.
I assume Casella has, they put the proper.
Well, Casella's a little different because there's only one little pond out there, but
Is that it?
you're right.
Yeah,
It's, they're in a flowway, you can't put it in a flowway.
yeah, right.
So they're pretty much off the hook for Casella.
Okay.
But they're not near there yet, they haven't done that. But speaking of Casella, WCI Lennar is doing a very good job of keeping their concrete debris in the station. Once we threatened them with a full-time guard out there,
Yep.
boy, they've been Johnny on the spot. And I check it twice a month, and Scott's guy checks it every day, and they're doing a good job. So that's all I got on ponds.
Okay. Any questions, other questions of Bob on ponds?
No.
Okay, we go to Safety and Security Work Group report. Unfortunately, it's not mine anymore. Mr. DePonte.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be back in the safety and security business. All you folks have gotten a hard copy of our update for benefit of the audience and for you, Teresa, because I'm sure you haven't gotten this. Real quick, we've extended the police presence program here in Pelican for 6 months. The rate has not changed. It's $58 an hour. Just for information, I threw in here that between February and September, there were 51 stop sign warnings issued, 17 stop sign tickets issued. There were 9 speeding warnings issued, but no tickets. There were 8, this is significant, I think, there were 8 golf cart stop sign warnings issued, and 1 golf cart actually got a ticket for not stopping at a stop sign. And there were 2 cyclists who were given warnings.
For what?
Stop signs. I mean, they weren't speeding, so it was stop signs, okay? We're gonna reissue, in fact, it's coming out tomorrow, Chris. We're gonna reissue the golf cart rules to the community now that season is getting started again. So Chris has told me today that's gonna happen tomorrow. We're gonna extend, if you are familiar with this from last year, these little emails that go out. Last year we did it about a dozen times probably altogether. These hot topics, little pictured kinds of things with short blurbs to go out to the community, you know, for them to do certain things, you know, like stop at stop signs and things of that nature. Little things that go out. We're gonna be doing like twice a month starting in January. We're gonna actually, the golf cart thing was the first one for November. and we'll do another one in December. But starting in January, we'll do it every other week. We'll get one of those out. And Cypress Grove Drive, at the corner of Cypress Grove Drive and Pelican Preserve Boulevard, Scott's guys put out some reflective paint on that corner and some reflectors in the road. So hopefully that'll help that situation a little bit. We'll see how that works out, and then if not, we'll look at some other potential options. Just skipping to number 7 real quick. Scott already talked about the improved lighting for the front gate, and we already talked about that one. The one thing I did want to spend a couple of minutes on is the resolution that the Viadana Board issued to, their recommendation is to increase the speed limit along Pelican Preserve Boulevard through their little section to 25 miles per hour. One of our folks actually met with the city to go through how would you go through the process of accomplishing that. The city was not thrilled with the idea, quite frankly. They raised 2 issues. One I'm not so sure about. One was that they were concerned that the road wasn't designed for the increased speeds from 15 to 25. But that you had the unintended consequence thing. If you raise it to 25, on the good side, the police can now enforce that speed limit. They can't enforce anything below 25. On the bad side, that'll encourage people to go faster than they already are. So if the ultimate goal is to keep speeding down, this changing the speed limit may not be the way to go. So we're still looking at that. We've initiated an action to get permits to put 2 15-mile-per-hour speed limit signs at the beginning and at the end of Viadana. Okay, that's not going to be a total solution by any stretch, but that's one thing we're looking at. And then we're going to explore other ways of potentially reducing the speed down there. So we're going to keep working on that one. So I sent a note to Quentin Davis, reflecting what I just told you guys.
Good.
So I haven't heard a response, but I just sent it today. So, and basically that's it. Any comments or questions?
One question.
Sure.
On item 1, if my math is correct, there's 88 either citations, warnings, or actual tickets in this time frame. How much did we spend between February and September to pay for this $58 an hour?
I couldn't give you, maybe you know what the totals have been for the year, but it's $58 an hour. It's at roughly what did I say? It's 3 to 4 times a month, usually in 4-hour blocks.
So 12 to 16 hours a month?
Figure it's 2, yeah.
February,
Yeah.
March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 8 months, 6 8s are 48. So roughly 128 hours at $58 an hour for 88 citations.
Well, yeah, I think, you can do that kind of a calculation. The question is, we're not, it isn't here for it isn't a money-making process. It's there so that people, it's for the reaction of residents to that.
I would be thrilled if they gave out a quarter of those number of citations.
A quarter more or?
A quarter less, because that would
It's an
indicate
indication of the
people are
violation.
actually stopping at the stop signs.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off, okay?
Well, we're getting
So the
about
more
10, we're getting about 10 a month.
Yeah, the more citations they give out means more people are not stopping at the stop sign.
Maybe,
So hopefully over
maybe
time,
10 a week would be better, I don't know.
that number will go down, so that
Okay.
the cost ratio actually gets worse over time. So, like I
Okay.
said, that is definitely a trade-off.
Yeah, and part of it is we did it under the assumption that the fact that folks know the cops are out there
Is a deterrent.
is a deterrent. Now,
Okay.
that's hard to measure, but
Well, I knew we were having trouble even getting
Yeah.
police to come in.
I can only tell you that the President's Council, when this came up, was very supportive of continuing the program. They felt it was something that we should be doing.
I agree. I saw Next Door Neighbor is that website.
Yeah.
That lady who got the ticket in her golf cart.
Yep.
The comments were very interesting. But it got the attention of the residents to let them know
Yes.
the police are here and that's a vehicle. You
Mhm.
have to stop.
Yep.
Right?
You're right.
I agree.
Yep.
I love the
I've
One-
got a
one-
question. We got 51 stop sign warnings, 17 tickets. Not that I want to be a hard butt on this thing, but if we got more tickets issued and less warnings, would that not make a bigger statement?
I'm sorry, say that again, Joe?
If we got more tickets issued instead of warnings,
Well,
more people be talking about, my community was talking about somebody who got a rolling stop ticket and said, well, I always do this, and I wasn't going very fast at all. She was incredibly annoyed. But everybody in the community heard about it and said, well, you better start stopping at Cypress Grove and Pelican Preserve Boulevard. But it was the ticket that made the significant difference. The warning would have just been, oh, okay.
I think, I believe the warning is just as good. And secondly, we don't get a commission on those tickets.
No, and I'm not looking at it as a commission thing. I'm just thinking, warnings, tickets.
Well,
that's the way the policemen operate. I mean, they give out a lot more warnings than they do tickets.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Bill,
Sure, go ahead, Teresa.
I do know that the woman who wrote on next door only got a warning. She did not get the ticket.
Mm.
The golf cart ticket went to somebody different.
Okay.
But it's the presence that I believe has improved people's awareness of that they have to obey our traffic
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
signs.
And that was the overarching purpose of the
I agree.
program. Yep.
When I first moved in Pelican 15 years ago, they voted against having a police presence.
Right.
When we did it again, 3 years ago, was it now?
Mhm.
Everybody was on board to do it, so.
Well, you got 2,300 rapidly going to 2,500 residents.
Yeah,
10
exactly.
years ago, less than half that number, obviously.
It's volume, yeah.
Yeah,
So
third.
it makes a big difference when you had that many more
Yeah, we were at
vehicles
800
on
for
the
a long
road.
time.
I agree.
Okay.
And one more thing, Bill.
yes,
I
Chris.
agree with all of this. I don't believe that we can hire police presence and then tell them not to do their job.
Yep.
So if we're gonna hire them, they need to be stopping people, whether they give them a warning or a ticket.
Right. Now, the reason there are not more speeding tickets going is because they don't, most of the time, I gather, they don't have radar guns, or people who are trained to use,
Yeah,
Radar
that's
guns.
been a running issue, that we can't control the actual vehicle that are used.
right,
We're trying to work on that one to get the city to say, hey, we really need to have vehicles that
And
have
don't
that
they also have to
capability.
be a minimum threshold of speed?
Well, that's
Most of our
another
roads
issue.
are to
I mean,
25.
the other issue is even though it's 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, they won't give you a ticket until you're doing over 40.
right.
Okay, so even, and it may extend to warnings as well. It
Mhm.
depends on the prerogative of the policeman involved.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's, they have to have the gun and they have to be properly trained, and that's an issue. We kind of looked at whether we could train them. The problem is you don't know what policemen are coming, so you might train these 3 policemen in how to do it, but 3 others are the ones that are actually doing the patrolling, so we kind of dropped that.
Mhm. Any other questions for Ron? Ron, any other comments? Okay, we will move on. Committee member requests and audience comments.
Meeting schedule.
Oh, I'm
Number 9.
sorry. You're right, Bob, I skipped that one. The meeting schedule.
John Grega has the 21st.
That is
Right.
next week, right?
Right,
Mr. Schofield has the 5th.
Yep.
And we don't know if they're having one on the 19th, but we didn't have anybody assigned.
right. Guess there's nobody here from, Chris has departed, but they're gonna have a meeting. Well, we will have the opportunity to assign somebody at our
Yeah, for the
December
12th.
meeting.
What meeting is that?
That would be, if they have it, it would be on the 19th of December.
I can attend that one.
Okay, Glenn, let's put you down for,
Yeah,
okay?
One of us goes to those meetings, Glenn.
yeah, I understand that. That's
Yeah.
fine, that's
Yeah.
fine.
So it's, John, you're next week.
And they're lots of fun, by the way, Glenn, you'll enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I-
Riveting. Riveting is the word that comes to mind.
I hear it's the equivalent of watching paint dry.
They're not that good.
It is very educational.
Yeah, that's true, it really is.
Not productive, but educational.
Teresa has been going to a lot of them. Teresa, do you have comments?
She's just chuckling.
No, I think you accurately described it.
Okay,
She's very well educated.
okay,
Yeah, I seriously doubt if there's gonna be a January the 2nd meeting, but,
I'd be shocked.
yeah.
So that might influence whether.
yeah, I don't know if they're gonna try and take the 9th,
Yeah.
do it the 9th and the 23rd, so we'll have to just adapt to whatever the board
Yes,
does.
right, okay.
Well, that's true.
Can I ask, what time do they start?
They start at 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Here.
And they're usually done by 8,
Yeah.
almost always.
7:30.
Well,
Well, it's
Yeah.
a little bit longer than our meetings.
Sometimes you're lucky and they're short,
That's
or
true.
only a
That's
couple of
true.
hours.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we got the schedule. Let's get to committee member requests and audience comments. Jack, you have a comment? Yeah, please go to the microphone and introduce yourself.
My name's Jack Dempsey, and I live in Bellagio. And I'd like you to consider two issues that have been brought up to the Safety Committee, and they are presently working on them. But I think that they should have a priority, both issues. The first issue, can you hear me all right? Because
Yeah, no.
I can't hear
We can
myself.
hear you. You're fine.
microphones are great.
You're good.
The first issue is something that has been going on now for 3.5 years. Back January 26th of 2016, I wrote an email to Joe Smith, copy to Gary Neubauer, and what I was asking was for them to light the sign, the directional sign at the circle, the one that says that the town center is on the right-hand side and the golf course is on the left-hand side. At that time, Joe Smith agreed that the sign should be replaced and that he was going to discuss it with Dean Groves. And Dean Groves wrote an extensive letter saying that he definitely would recommend that the sign be lit because it can't be seen at night. And he went on to the discussion about the distance between the thing. As you know, Dean is a professional engineer that works with this stuff all the time. So he recommended that it be done. At that point, then the letter was sent to Gary Neubauer. Neubauer brought it to WCI, and Neubauer said that he personally would recommend that Dean Grove's recommendation, because of his experience, should be taken care of, and the light should be put on the sign. I won't take much longer, I just got two quick things. But Dean said not only should the sign be lit, but there should be actually two signs, which makes a lot of sense. The sign on the right side should say about the town center stuff and the Magnolia Room. But there should be an additional one on the left side that says golf course, the bag drop, and the room over at the golf course, so that people would be able to see these things, and both signs should be lit. That's the first thing that I'd like you to consider, even though the safety committee's been looking at it. And, one of the other important things.
Interestingly enough, Jack, the safety committee, I haven't seen this on the project list. This is a new one to me.
Okay.
And I was chair of the safety committee for 3 years. I didn't know this was even on the list. So I'm glad you brought it up, because it hasn't even been considered. Yep.
That's right, I just wanted to look at it. I'm
Okay.
not saying, I know that Ron's had a discussion about it, but
Just recently,
Okay.
not at our
Okay.
SSWG meeting.
when Neubauer, because when Ron and I talked about it, Ron said that it might belong to Rich's group.
Well, presumably it would be town center responsibility to do that as opposed to us.
I see, yeah.
Okay, but it is an issue, and then I would bring it over to them.
Right,
Between Terry and Rich Rittenberg, see if they'll
Okay.
take it on.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's one issue. The other issue, the real quick one, is that when people are coming out of the golf course area and they come down to the end of the road, they have no idea where the exit is. we do have an exit sign as you're coming out of the town center. There's a small sign on the right-hand side that points to the left towards the gate that says exit. There is no sign coming out of the golf course area, and you just wander around. I've gone to other golf courses, and then you try to come out and try to find your way out. You just keep driving around in circles. I've walked quite often in the morning, and people would stop and say, "How do you get out of here?" And so I think there should be two signs. One, as Ron knows, and I sent pictures to him, that you would consider putting them in. Signs are very cheap, they could be done quickly, especially now that we're in the holiday season and people are using the function rooms. There should be two signs. You know, what could they cost, $50 a piece or something like that? So I think that maybe a priority should be put on both of those issues. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Are permits needed from the city to put signs up on our streets?
Not something like an exit, but if you're putting up speed limit or crosswalk,
that
or
type of-
those kind of things, yeah.
Okay.
These are not road signs, they're informational signs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the only real question is it golf course / town center responsibility or us? Because of
Well, golf
where-
courses membership only. I'm surprised people that are over there that are,
Oh, you have a lot of
Well, but
vendors.
they have
Other
Function vendors,
events,
functions,
they
yeah,
got
you-
weddings.
I
and
would
other
not
kinds
have
of
He has a
seen
good
that
point.
was, you know, an
That's
issue,
an
but,
excellent point.
yeah.
Yeah, the
If
members
you have
don't
a
have
sign
the
that
issue.
says golf course this way, they only can make a left. When they come out, they gotta make a right. It's just
Depends on how many
logical.
drinks they've had.
I could do that with 10 drinks.
GPS too.
Okay,
Sure.
So safety committee's gonna take this one? Okay.
yeah, at least pick it
Well,
up.
I'll bring it to the right
Yep,
areas.
yep, yep,
Yep.
yep, yep.
Any other audience comments? Comments from members? Okay, the next meeting date, as far as we know at this point, is December 12th, 2019. Hearing no other comments?
Glenn, you're a good influence. This is the fastest we've gotten out of here.
Well, because we kept the ponds
Oh, that's
report
great.
down to
Yeah.
a
Short.
reasonable level.
So what?
We didn't have all that financial BS.
I have one comment. I will be having.
It's over, Joe. You
a
missed
knee
it.
replacement in the middle of December, so I don't know what I'm gonna be limping like in January, so.
Ooh.
By then, you'll be well.
Fun.
I would entertain,
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
would
say.
entertain a motion to adjourn. the
I'll make a
meeting.
motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
The meeting is adjourned. Teresa, thank you for hanging with us.
Thank you for coming.
No problem.
Okay,
Next time.
you'll be here for the next one?
Yes, I will.
Okay, good. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
December 12th, 2 p.m.
That really was a pretty fast meeting for
Getting
us.
your knee replaced.
13th of December.
Oh, you'll be here for the January meeting.
Yeah, geez, you'll be skipping and jumping.
Good, yeah. Just bring your cane.
I might be on that ski trip.
Have you heard that from Nancy?
Well, you'll be working with me on a number of things like the CE funding request that we submit a couple times a month.
Yeah. That